Hey travelers, Mag here, and I'm coming at you this afternoon from Saga, kind of right in the middle of Kyushu here, from the Hot Air Balloon Museum. Every year, they do an event in Saga where they bring tons of hot air balloons up into the air, so I couldn't resist the opportunity to bring you inside and check out the Hot Air Balloon Museum. After this, we only have a couple hours till sunset, so we're going to make our way over to the Saga Castle Ruins, and from there we'll tour the museum and finish off our day. We've got a lot in store and not a lot of time to check it out, so let's get out there and see it together. Come on, let's go.
As the first permanent exhibit of hot air balloons, the Saga Hot Air Balloon Museum opened its doors to the public on October 1st of 2016. But the history of hot air balloons in Saga began decades before that. In 1980, the Saga International Balloon Fiesta was held for the first time ever here in Saga. For its first 2 years, the fiesta had been held in Fukuoka, but once it moved here, it never went back again. With its relatively mild wind conditions and vast area available, this is the ideal location to fly hot air balloons.
And this, in a nutshell, is why I was so excited about coming to the Saga Hot Air Balloon Museum. Could you imagine coming out to the event and seeing this in action? This alone makes it a checklist item to try and get here during this event in one of the upcoming years. From the ground, of course. I don't know if I'm going to be going up in a hot air balloon. That's for the birds.
Throughout the International Balloon Fiesta, there are about 20 events to be able to participate in. Most of them are geared toward achieving techniques of accuracy within a specified period of time. The pilot first lifts off in the hot air balloon several kilometers away from the intended target. They then ride along on the natural winds, carrying along with them in their basket a sandbag known as a marker. When they are over the target area, or as close as they think they can get, they drop the marker onto the target.
Apparently, coming into the museum, I get a free play on the crane game. How am I going to resist that? I'm terrible at this thing, but just the same, we're going to give this a try. Let's see what we can do here. All right. So indestructible fate does these a lot. I don't want any of the edges. That center one right there looks like my winner. Let's see what we get. Oh, I don't got it. Look at that. I actually won one! What did I get? I got a little card here. Oh, I'm so excited right now. I never win these games. Yeah! Check that out. I'm definitely holding on to this.
As you might expect, this event has grown significantly throughout the years, from its first year when there were only 14 balloons rising into the sky. By 1989, it had become large enough that it would be the first time ever that the Hot Air Balloon World Championship would be hosted here in Japan. Since then, the World Championship has been hosted here twice more, in 1997 and again in 2016. It has become the biggest event hosted in Saga City, with more than 100 balloons in attendance and over 800,000 people coming to spectate each year. The symbol of the hot air balloon has become an integral part of the culture in Saga.
I'm gonna be honest, I am actually learning quite a bit here, but I'm relying more so on the pictures to do the talking than I am on the words right now. Fortunately, a lot of these do have hiragana, which is these small characters above the kanji. These break down what the kanji means in a way that even I can read. But a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now and that we're learning is stuff that we're learning after the fact.
In my research on the City of Saga, it became obvious that a trip to the Hot Air Balloon Museum was a must-do when I came to the city. However, if you were ever fortunate enough to visit the island of Kyushu between the end of October and the beginning of November, I would highly recommend coming to Saga to watch these balloons take to the skies.
This trip to the Saga Hot Air Balloon Museum was every bit as exciting as I would hope it would be. Now it's time for us to go find a few geocaches as we work our way over to the Saga Castle Ruins.
I don't make it very far at all out of the Saga Hot Air Balloon Museum before my attention is immediately grabbed once again. Just a couple hundred meters away from their front door, I discovered the Chōkokan, opened nearly 100 years ago in 1927. This museum was originally founded by Nabeshima of the Nabeshima Clan during the last days of the daimyo in the Saga domain. The interior is chock full of historical materials and works of art related to the Saga domain and the Nabeshima family. The museum was unfortunately closed in 1945 and made inaccessible to the public for more than 50 years, finally reopening its doors in 1998.
There are a lot of very interesting displays on the history of Saga here, and the girl working at the front counter was explaining to me some of the history, and it's definitely pretty rich. It's interesting to look at the pictures because they tell their own story here too.
If you look at the building that we just walked into, 1927, this building is approaching its 100th birthday, and it looks pretty much exactly the same way as when we walked through those front doors. So they really hold on to their history, and they have a fantastic way of showcasing it to us.
The Nabeshima Clan maintained control over the Saga domain from the late Sengoku period all the way through the Edo period. Descendants of the Fujiwara clan, they began to play a pivotal role in the region as early as the Muromachi period. During that period, opposition forces had risen up against the Ashikaga shogunate's control over the island of Kyushu. The Nabeshima clan helped to suppress that opposition, allowing the Ashikaga shogunate to maintain control over the island with minimal resistance. The clan, however, did not become Nabeshima until well into the 15th century. It was not until that time when Shoni Shigenao established himself in Hizen province, which would later become Saga City. They cemented their seat of power during the invasion of Kyushu in 1587.
Just take a second and really look at this door with me. There's a lot of things happening there, and none of them look like you're going to make it out of there without falling down these stairs. I don't suggest using that one.
All of the displays within the Chōkokan are completely in Japanese with no English translation. So understanding the story being told when English is your first language is a time-consuming process, but it's a story worth delving into. As the 10th and final daimyo of Saga, Nabeshima Naomosa was granted control of the prefecture at the age of 17 when his father retired in the year 1830. What he inherited was a nearly bankrupt prefecture on the verge of collapse. He instituted significant financial reforms, helping to bring Saga into a successful future. He officially retired in 1861 as an open proponent of ending isolationism and opening trade.
The geocache listings already kind of told the story by itself, because there's not all that many here in Saga. But being right in the heart of the downtown area, I can tell you this is not a big city like we were in Kyushu, Nagasaki, Osaka, really even Tokushima. This is still a city, but Saga is definitely more leaning toward the countryside. The buildings aren't too tall and pressing around me, and it's not heavily busy, which, you know, to be honest, I prefer. This size of city, this is kind of my sweet spot in Japan.
So how big is Saga exactly? It covers an area of about 430 kilometers squared with a population of about 227,000 people. In short, this is actually a fairly large area for people to be able to spread out a little bit as compared to many other Japanese cities. That's only about 530 people per square kilometer, as opposed to a city like Osaka with nearly 12,000 people per square kilometer. Or even the more recently visited Kyushu, which has about 2,000 people per square kilometer. Its small size can be attributed to its humble beginnings, starting off as a water transportation and agricultural town. Commerce and industry did not begin to take off in the region until completion of the Saga Castle. But as we just learned about in the Chōkokan, financial issues at the time kept it from growing too large. The region hit its stride in growth coming into the 1980s and has since leveled off.
It's a somewhat limited selection of caches here in Saga, coupled with the fact that there's just not that many. I didn't have luck with the first couple that I tried. They don't have great histories, but it only takes one to count the prefecture, and one we have. Of course, we're still going to go try and get more, but this takes a lot of the pressure off knowing that Saga is technically complete.
To finish off my time here in the City of Saga, I head toward the Saga Castle Ruins, which is where the majority of geocaches hidden in the city are located, including 4 traditionals around the perimeter and a 5-stage adventure lab which ends with an adventure lab bonus. Beside the very obvious moat, which could easily be mistaken for a river, there are actually very few signs here that a castle once stood upon these ruins. Unlike the majority of castles we've visited across Japan, this is a castle that was built on a plain rather than a hill or mountain. There is neither an ascent to be had up a never-ending staircase, nor a winding pathway to take the longest way possible to the destination. In fact, you will not come across any obvious indicator that a castle once stood here until you are passing through the castle gate on the way into the Saga Castle History Museum. This museum is hosted in the main portion of the castle, which was restored between 2001 and 2004. It is actually the single largest wooden castle reconstruction anywhere in the country, and in 2006 was listed as one of the 100 fine castles of Japan by the Japan Castle Foundation. Now, how great of an honor that is when there are only a little more than 100 castles in Japan, I suppose I'll leave you to decide. What I will tell you for sure though, of all the castles that I've visited in Japan, this has the widest open floor plan of any place I've been. Plenty of room to take a fantastic photo.
I gotta say, I look pretty good in that dress. What do you guys think? Is the kimono really my style?
The placement of Saga Castle is one of the few times we have seen where the location was decided based on a pre-existing village. That is a severe contrast to what we are used to seeing, where the castle is first built and then the castle town develops around it. The fortified village that originally stood here was under the control of the warlords of the Ryuzoji clan. When they were defeated by the combined forces of Shimazu and Ariyama in 1584, Nabeshima Naoshige took control of the region. The clan's holdings were confirmed in the wake of the Battle of Sekigahara, and Naoshige's son became the first daimyo of Saga Domain. Work on the castle began almost immediately in 1602, only pending the approval of the Tokugawa shogunate. The original castle included 5 stories surrounded by 80-meter wide moats. The earthen ramparts of the moats, screened behind pine and camphor trees, earned it the nickname of the submerged castle.
This actually lines up to what I was seeing on the satellite imagery right here. I came across this bridge and I knew I'd crossed into the castle territory because of the moat, but there's really nothing there that indicates it's a castle anymore. You don't see any of that until you get here on the inner moat where the castle museum is. Then you see the signs of the walls and that moat there, but otherwise, that's just now a piece of history.
Despite the nickname, the castle would eventually succumb to fire, the first of which in 1726, destroying most of the structures. The palace portion would be restored within just a couple of years, going on to be the center of government for the Saga area throughout the Edo period. Fire once again took it in 1835, but this time the buildings were reconstructed by the final daimyo, Nabeshima Naomosa. It would succumb to fire one last time in 1874.
The original castle may not exist anymore, but you could certainly replicate it piece by piece. They have detailed plans for the entire thing, and you can build your own castle. Why not?
As with any castle, museum, or in this case, castle museum that we have visited across Japan, I am only scratching the surface of a deep history. Saga Castle and the daimyos of the Nabeshima clan saw hundreds of years of warfare, cultural development, political changes, and governmental shifts. Each of the displays you have seen here touring through the castle offer just a small piece of this history. Reading through all of the information provided in the museum and giving each piece here the attention it deserves would take several hours. But despite the rapid pace of this tour, I hope you've learned a little bit about the history of Saga and the Nabeshima clan.
Okay, that wraps up our time in Saga. We did not have a lot of time to work with, but we made the most of all the light we had available to go through and tour not 1, not 2, but 3 museums. To finish things off, we went ahead and toured through the Saga Castle Museum, which gives us a great history lesson of the castle that once stood here. And this was a very surprising place to walk through. I could not believe how spacious all the corridor was and the amazing displays we had there. Nevertheless, we have run out of daylight yet again, as seems to always be the case. Thank you guys for joining me on this tour of Saga today, and I can't wait to continue showing you more of Kyushu in the coming videos. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, stay tuned for updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.